My old 2010 Toyota Corolla rattled like it was about to fall apart every time I hit a bump on the way to my parents' house in the suburbs of Tulsa. The muffler was held together with duct tape and sheer stubbornness, and the engine made this low groaning noise that turned heads on the sidewalk. I pulled into the long, perfectly manicured driveway and parked as far from the front door as possible. Closer spots were reserved for the shiny new Mercedes and the Range Rover that still had dealer plates. My car looked like it belonged in a junkyard next to those. I killed the engine, checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. Tired eyes, no makeup, hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, and grabbed the container of homemade pasta salad I'd thrown together after a long day at school. I was Jordan Ellis, 31 years old, teaching English to high school juniors, pulling in just enough to cover rent on a small apartment and keep the lights on. That was it. No drama, no spotlight, just steady work and a simple life. I walked up the stone steps. Before I could knock, the door flew open. My mother Cynthia stood there in her designer blouse, arms crossed. She glanced at the pasta salad, then at my worn sneakers, then at my face. "You're late again, Jordan," she said, not bothering with hello. "And please tell me that rust bucket isn't visible from the street. The neighbors just got their new landscaping." "I parked at the edge, Mom. Good to see you too." She stepped aside like I was delivering a package. "Hurry up. Gabriella's party is in full swing and she needs help with the champagne setup. You know the rule, family helps family." I stepped inside. The house was alive with laughter, clinking glasses, and that smooth playlist my father always put on for these events. Aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone was there orbiting around my older sister, Gabriella. She was 35, glowing in a sleek black dress hair, perfect, laughing loud at something Uncle Ray said. Her lifestyle brand had just launched its latest pivot, and she was already talking partnerships like it was a done deal. I squeezed past a group of relatives heading toward the kitchen when my father Timothy intercepted me in the hallway. Scotch in hand, face flushed with pride. "There she is," he said, but his eyes weren't on me. They were past me, locked on Gabriella. "Look at your sister Jordan. That's what real drive looks like. She just closed a deal with a boutique chain in Dallas. Big things coming." "That's great, Dad," I said, shifting the container to my other arm. He finally looked at me, eyes dropping to my faded jeans. "You know, if you put in half that effort, maybe you wouldn't still be stuck in a classroom making what, 45,000 a year?" 52, I corrected quietly. "With good benefits." "Benefits don't buy Range Rovers." He scoffed, clapping my shoulder hard enough to make me step back. "Go help your mother. She's stressing about the appetizers." I pushed through to the kitchen, set the pasta salad down among the catered trays, and got to work. But as I carried platters around the room offering food to people who barely glanced at me, I wasn't just the invisible sister tonight. I was carrying something heavier in my pocket, a single folded paper that could end this charade in seconds. Because 5 years ago, everything changed. And tonight, they were about to find out. "We have finished dividing the assets. Now you go your way, and I'll go mine," Dad said coldly at that family meeting. "Your sister will get the villas and the cars." I slid the deed across the table. "You can't divide my property." They read the owner's name on the 2020 transfer and started screaming. If you've ever been the one in the family who gets overlooked, dismissed, or treated like the backup plan, while everyone else gets the glory, hit that like button, subscribe, and stick around. Because what happens when the quiet one finally shows their hand? It's a quiet revenge you won't see coming. Thanks for watching so far. Let's get into it. I pushed through the swinging door into the kitchen where the chaos was controlled, but relentless. Trays of shrimp cocktail and mini quiches lined every surface, and the caterers were moving like they were on a timer. Mom shoved a silver platter into my hands before I even set the pasta salad down properly. "Table 6 needs these crab cakes, then come back and refill the ice buckets. Gabriella wants the tower, perfect for photos." I nodded and headed out, weaving through the crowd with the tray balanced like a waitress at a wedding I wasn't invited to. People smiled politely, took one bite, then turned back to their conversations without a second glance. I was the help, the reliable one who showed up, did the work, and faded into the background. As I circled the living room, I caught snippets of Gabriella holding court near the fireplace. She was perched on the arm of Dad's favorite leather chair, phone in hand, scrolling through what looked like engagement stats. "And the rebrand is killing it," she was saying to Aunt Karen and Uncle Ray. "Lux Vibe isn't just a blog anymore, it's a movement. We're dropping the consulting packages next quarter, exclusive styling sessions for high net worth clients. I've got 2 influencers already signed on." Uncle Ray raised his glass. "That's my girl. Always thinking big." Dad beamed from across the room, scotch refreshed. "See, that's vision. She turned a hobby into something real. Not like some people who stay safe and complain about it." I kept moving, offering crab cakes to a cousin who barely looked up from her phone. But my ears stayed tuned. Gabriella laughed, that sharp, practiced laugh. "The villas are next, obviously. Once Grandma's estate clears, I'll convert the one on Maple Lane into a content house. Think aesthetic shoots, brand retreats, passive income on steroids. And the cars Dad's already promised me, the Mercedes for shoots. It's all lining up." A few relatives murmured approval. Someone asked about the market. Gabriella waved it off. "Timing's perfect, Tulsa's booming. Sell high, reinvest smart. Grandma doesn't need all those properties anyway, she's 85. Better to liquidate while the values are up." I felt my grip tighten on the tray. Liquidate. Like the villas were just poker chips. Like the cars, classic restorations Grandpa had babied for decades, were accessories for her Instagram grid. I made another loop back to the kitchen. Mom was barking orders at a caterer about the wrong wine glasses. She spotted me and pointed. "Jordan, the champagne tower is leaning. Fix it before Gabriella notices. And smile. This is a celebration." I set the empty tray down and headed to the corner where the tower stood, 5 tiers of crystal flutes sparkling under the recessed lights. A cousin had bumped it earlier. I steadied the base, adjusted the top flute, made sure nothing would topple, when Gabriella inevitably climbed up for her toast. While I worked, Dad wandered in, loosening his tie. He didn't look at me directly, just grabbed a fresh glass of scotch from the counter. "Your sister's on fire tonight," he said, more to the room than to me. "Closed another sponsorship deal. That's how you build something lasting." I straightened up. "Sounds exciting." He finally glanced my way. "You should take notes. Sitting in a classroom grading essays isn't going to get you anywhere. Gabriella's out there making moves. You're still playing it safe." I didn't answer, just nodded once and carried the spare flutes back out. Back in the living room, Gabriella was climbing onto a chair, now glass raised. The room quieted. She tossed her hair back, voice carrying like she was on stage. "To chasing dreams, to family who believes in you, and to the empire we're about to build. Cheers." Everyone clinked glasses. Dad's eyes shone with pride. Mom wiped a tear she didn't really mean. Aunts and uncles toasted loudly. I stood near the back wall, empty tray in hand, watching them all. They talked about villas like they were already theirs. Cars like prizes to be claimed. Grandma's work reduced to a balance sheet they couldn't wait to cash out. They didn't know the deeds had been in my name for years. They didn't know I paid the property taxes, handled the maintenance calls at 2 a.m., screened new tenants so families could stay put. They saw me as the sister who brought pasta salad and fixed champagne towers. But tonight, as the laughter echoed and the toasts kept coming, I kept my mouth shut. The paper in my pocket felt heavier than ever. The real celebration, the one where the truth came out, was still coming. The applause for Gabriella's toast was still ringing in my ears when the memory hit me hard. It wasn't the champagne or the laughter that brought it back. It was the weight of that folded deed in my pocket, the one I'd carried every day like a secret heartbeat. It started on a rainy afternoon in early 2020. I was 26 then, fresh out of grad school, teaching part-time, while paying off loans in a cramped one-bedroom apartment on the east side of Tulsa. My phone rang while I was grading essays at a coffee shop. The caller ID showed Grandma Virginia. She didn't call often, and when she did, it was usually to ask me to pick up her prescriptions or sit with her for an hour while she sorted old photos. But this time, her voice was different. Sharp, urgent, no small talk. "Jordan, I need you to come to the house right now. We're going somewhere together. Don't tell anyone." I drove over in the same rattling Corolla, pulling up to her modest ranch-style home on the edge of Midtown. She was waiting on the porch in her navy coat, cane in hand, looking smaller than usual, but with that same steel in her eyes. We didn't go to the doctor. She directed me downtown to a quiet office building on Boulder Avenue. The brass plaque read, "Brooks and Associates Attorneys at Law." Mr. Thomas Brooks met us in a wood-paneled conference room that smelled of leather and old paper. Grandma sat first, refusing the offered water. She looked straight at me. "Jordan, you know the properties. The 6 villas Grandpa and I bought starting in the 70s, the ones on Maple Cedar Oak, and the 3 up near Utica. Plus the 3 classic cars he restored in the garage. All of it." I nodded. I'd helped Grandpa wax those cars as a teenager, listened to him talk about how each one told a story. The villas were solid brick, well-maintained, rented to good families who'd been there for decades. "Your father," she said the word like a stone, "has been pushing me to sell. Says the market's hot, says I should cash out, move to assisted living, give them their early inheritance so they can enjoy it now. He calls it planning. I call it impatience." She paused, gripping her cane tighter. "And Gabriella came by last month. Wanted a loan, $75,000 for her next pivot. No business plan, just a vision board and promises. When I said no, she cried about how I didn't believe in her dreams. I stayed quiet. I knew the pattern. Dad wanted to retire early by a boat travel. Gabriella saw every asset as fuel for her next launch." They both looked at Grandma and saw an ATM with an expiration date. Grandma leaned forward. If I leave these in my will, they'll be gone within 18 months. The villas sold to developers for condos, tenants evicted, the cars auctioned off for quick cash. 60 years of work erased. The families who live there now, the ones who pay on time and keep the yards nice, they'd be out on the street." Mr. Brooks slid a thick folder across the table. The cover read, "Virginia Hayes Irrevocable Trust Agreement." "This," he said in his calm, measured voice, "is a deed transfer and trust setup. Effective today, all 6 villas and the 3 vehicles are moved into this irrevocable trust. You, Jordan, are named sole trustee and sole beneficiary." My breath caught. "Grandma, I can't. They'll hate me. Dad will—" "They won't know," she cut in. "That's the condition. This is irrevocable. Once signed, it's done. Not waiting for me to die. You own them now. But for my peace of mind and to see who they really are, you keep it quiet. You manage everything. You pay the taxes, handle repairs, screen tenants. You watch them beg and scheme while you hold the keys." I stared at the papers. The weight of it settled in my chest, not excitement, but responsibility. Heavy, permanent. "Why me?" I asked, voice small. "I'm nobody special. I teach kids how to write essays. I don't know real estate." Grandma reached across and took my hand. Her skin was thin, but her grip was firm. "You are the only one who ever asked how my day was without wanting something. You come every Sunday with groceries when no holiday forces you. You helped Grandpa tune those cars without complaining about the grease. You understand these aren't just assets, they're homes. Memories work." She looked me in the eye. "I'm not giving you a gift, Jordan. I'm giving you a burden. You'll work nights when pipes burst. You'll deal with late rent inspections arguments. And you'll watch your family treat you like the afterthought while you protect what they want to destroy. Can you carry that? Can you stay silent?" I thought about the tenants in the Cedar Villa, the young couple saving for their first house. the retired teacher in the Oak property who'd lived there 28 years. I thought about Grandpa's hands, always stained with oil and pride. I looked at Grandma, then at Mr. Brooks. "I'll do it," I said. He handed me the pen. I signed where he indicated page after page. With each stroke, I felt the shift. I wasn't just acquiring property. I was stepping into a role no one else wanted, guardian of something bigger than all of us. Mr. Brooks notarized the last page, stamped it, and handed me the originals in a sealed envelope. "Congratulations, Ms. Ellis," he said quietly. "You're now the owner of record. I'll handle the filings with the county. No public record of the beneficiary until, well, until it's time." Grandma squeezed my hand one more time. "Keep your head down. Let them think I'm still in charge. And when the time comes, you'll know what to do." I drove her home that afternoon in silence. She didn't speak again about it, but as I helped her inside, she stopped at the door. "Thank you, Jordan, for seeing the value in the dirt, not just the shine." I nodded, throat tight. That was the day the secret began. Years of steady work. Years of watching them circle, waiting for the prize they thought was theirs. They had no idea the prize had already been claimed. Those signatures in Mr. Brooks's office marked the start of a double life that lasted 5 full years. The first winter after the transfer tested me right away. A storm rolled through Tulsa in late December, dropping enough ice to snap branches and flood basements. At 3 a.m., my phone buzzed with a call from the tenant in the Maple Lane villa. Water pouring through the ceiling in the master bedroom. Roof shingles had blown off in the wind. I didn't call a management company. I couldn't risk questions about who the new owner was. Instead, I pulled on boots, grabbed a tarp and ladder from my storage unit, and drove over in the dark. The tenant, a single dad named Marcus, met me at the door with his 2 kids huddled on the couch. I climbed up in the freezing rain, nailed down what I could then called a roofer I trusted from Grandpa's old contacts. The full replacement cost $28,000. I wrote the check from the trust account without hesitation. That was the pattern. Roofs, plumbing backups, HVAC failures, every problem landed on me. I learned to spot water stains before they became disasters, to negotiate with contractors without revealing too much, to keep records so clean the IRS would never blink. The cars were their own challenge. Grandpa's 3 classics, a 1968 Mustang, a 1972 Corvette, and a 1985 Mercedes SL, sat in a climate-controlled garage attached to one of the villas. They needed regular maintenance, oil changes, belt replacements, detailing to prevent corrosion. I drove them sparingly, only to keep the engines turning, and always at night when no one would see. Once a month, I'd take them to a specialist shop on the south side. The mechanic knew me as the Hayes estate rep and never asked questions. Each service ran $2,000 to $4,000. I paid quietly and kept the mileage low. Tenants brought different headaches. One in the Cedar property started subletting rooms without permission, turning the place into a revolving door. Complaints came in noise, trash, parking issues. I showed up unannounced one Saturday morning, documented everything, and served the eviction notice myself. The guy argued, threatened to sue. I stood firm, citing the lease clauses Grandpa had written decades ago. He was out in 30 days. The new family, who moved in quiet, reliable, paid on time, and sent thank you notes after I fixed their leaky faucet. Hiding it all was the hardest part. I still drove the old Corolla to school every day, still lived in that small apartment with secondhand furniture. Colleagues asked why I didn't upgrade. I shrugged it off. Teacher salary, student loans, tight budget. Family gatherings were worse. Dad would comment on my lack of ambition. Gabriella would flash her latest leased SUV and ask why I didn't level up. I smiled, nodded, changed the subject. The closest call came in the summer of 2023. Uncle Ray, Dad's brother, always the self-proclaimed investor, cornered me at a 4th of July barbecue in their backyard. Smoke from the grill hung in the air as he leaned in close, beer in hand. Jordan, you hear about the market? That Cedar Villa is prime. I bet you could get 900,000 cash as is. Tell Grandma to sell one. Test the waters. Your dad could use the boost. My pulse spiked. If they pushed Grandma too hard, if they got a title search started, the trust would show up. I kept my voice casual. I drove by there last week. Foundation looks rough, cracks in the brickwork. And the zoning changed for that block. Might not appraise as high as you think. Uncle Ray frowned. Cracks I didn't notice. Subtle ones. Better to wait. You don't want to sink money into repairs just to sell. He grumbled but backed off. Dad overheard and agreed, why spend when Grandma could just hold on. They shifted to talking boats instead. I walked away from that conversation with my hands shaking behind my back. They were already spending money they didn't have, planning flips and vacations on assets that weren't theirs. I went home that night and double-checked the trust documents. Everything was locked tight. Irrevocable. Mine. Those years weren't glamorous. I spent weekends hauling insulation, meeting plumbers, running credit checks on new tenants. My hands stayed rough from tools and weather. My personal savings stayed modest so no one would suspect. But the trust account grew steadily. Rents came in on time. Expenses were controlled. The villas stayed occupied by good people. The cars stayed pristine. I wasn't building an empire for myself. I was holding the line for Grandma, for Grandpa's memory, for the families who called those places home. And all the while, my own family kept circling, waiting for the day they could cash in. They never suspected the owner was the one they overlooked. Spring brought warmer days to Tulsa, but it also brought the first real crack in Grandma's health. It started small. She forgot where she put her glasses one afternoon, then left the stove on twice in the same week. I noticed during my Sunday visits. She waved it off as age, but I insisted on taking her to the doctor. The scan showed a minor stroke, nothing catastrophic, but enough to weaken her left side and slow her speech. The doctors recommended home care rest and monitoring. My parents' house had plenty of space, but Dad said the stairs were too much, and Mom claimed work schedules made it impossible. They suggested a facility. I didn't argue. I moved Grandma into my apartment instead, the spare room I'd kept empty for years. I hired a daytime nurse from the trust funds and handled evenings myself. Feeding her soup, helping with medication, reading aloud from the old mystery novels she loved. She still had her sharp mind. Her eyes followed everything. One evening in late May, while sorting her mail at the kitchen table, I opened a bank statement from her personal checking account. The numbers jumped out. Withdrawals, $2,000 cash here, $3,000 there, then a $45,000 check to cash dated mid-March when she'd been bedridden after the stroke. My stomach turned. Grandma hadn't left the apartment in weeks except for doctor visits, and even then I drove her. She couldn't have gone to the bank. I pulled up her online banking on her tablet. I had the passwords because I'd set them up for her. The check image loaded. The signature looked like hers at first glance, but the loops were too exaggerated, the slant off. I'd seen her handwriting on birthday cards for 30 years. This was forged. The total missing over 6 months, $25,000. I sat there in the dim light staring at the screen. The anger came slow and cold. Gabriella. It had to be. She'd been over more often lately, helping with errands, always asking about Grandma's accounts in passing. Mom had mentioned Gabriella's latest business setback, debts piling up, vendors suing. $25,000 would cover a lot of that. I didn't confront anyone yet. Instead, I saved screenshots of every statement, every check image, time-stamped them, and backed them up to a secure folder labeled Evidence. Then I called Mr. Brooks. He answered on the second ring. Jordan. Everything all right with Virginia? She's stable, but I found something. Forged checks from her personal account. $25,000 gone. The handwriting matches Gabriella's. I've known it since childhood. Silence on his end, then a sharp intake of breath. Send me the files. I'll run a forensic review. If it's forgery, we have options: civil demand for repayment or escalate to authorities if they fight. I emailed everything that night. 2 days later, Mr. Brooks called back. Confirmed. The signatures are inconsistent with Virginia's known exemplars. We can draft a confession of judgment. Gabriella admits the debt and agrees to a repayment schedule. $500 a month until paid in full. If she defaults or challenges the trust, we file the evidence. I asked the next question carefully. And if she refuses, we can pursue a civil suit for conversion and fraud, or report to the district attorney for potential criminal charges. But let's start with the demand. It's quieter, faster, and keeps the family fallout contained for now. I agreed. He prepared the document, a simple one-page confession outlining the amount, the forged checks, and the repayment terms. No threats, just facts and consequences. I printed it, sealed it in an envelope, and kept it ready. Grandma noticed my tension one morning while I helped her with breakfast. She reached out with her good hand and touched my arm. "Gabriella?" she asked, voice slurred but clear enough. I nodded once. Her eyes hardened. "Show them. When the time comes." I squeezed her hand. "I will, Grandma. I promise." Those weeks were exhausting. By day, I taught classes, graded papers, kept up appearances. After school, I managed the villas, coordinating a plumbing fix at the Oak property, approving a new lease for the Utica villa. Evenings were for Grandma, helping her walk short distances, monitoring her blood pressure, listening to her quiet stories about Grandpa. She never complained, but I saw the fatigue in her face. The forged checks changed everything. What had been steady protection turned into active defense. I wasn't just holding the line anymore. I was preparing to push back. Mr. Brooks finalized the draft repayment agreement and sent me the final version. I reviewed it line by line. It was clean, legal, airtight. All that remained was the family meeting Dad had scheduled for the following Sunday. They wanted to discuss estate transition while Grandma was still breathing. I knew what was coming. The following Sunday arrived like any other family gathering, except this time the air felt thicker. I drove to my parents' house in the suburbs, the envelope with Mr. Brooks's draft tucked inside my blazer pocket. The driveway was full. Gabriella's leased SUV parked crookedly in front Uncle Ray's truck, a few cousins' sedans. I parked at the edge, as always, and walked in without knocking. The living room had been rearranged. Folding chairs faced the coffee table like an impromptu boardroom. A projector screen hung on the wall connected to Gabriella's laptop. Mom was setting out coffee and pastries. Dad stood at the front, papers in hand, looking more like a chairman than a father. I took a seat in the back row next to Tatum, my younger cousin, who'd always been the quiet observer in these things. She gave me a small nod but said nothing. Dad cleared his throat once everyone settled. "Thanks for coming. As you know, Virginia's condition has declined. We need to discuss estate transition now while she's still with us. No sense waiting for probate delays." He gestured to Gabriella. She stood, laser pointer in hand, clicking to the first slide, Estate Transition Plan, Maximizing Legacy. "Here's the overview," she began, voice confident. Grandma owns 6 villas across Tulsa, Maple, Cedar, Oak, Utica, and the 2 on Brookside. Appraised total around $5 million. Plus the 3 classic cars in the garage worth another $200,000 combined. Managing all that is a headache: tenants, repairs, taxes. My proposal: sell the 4 oldest villas immediately. I have a developer contact ready to offer cash, quick close. That nets us about $3 million. We split it evenly among the family. The remaining 2 villas and the cars stay in the family. I'll manage them as short-term rentals and event spaces. Passive income for everyone. Murmurs of approval rippled through the room. Uncle Ray leaned forward. "Smart. Cash now is better than waiting." Dad nodded. "Exactly. To make this happen smoothly, since Virginia is incapacitated, I'm filing for emergency guardianship. We'll need everyone to sign this consent form supporting the plan. It speeds things up with the court." He passed clipboards around. When it reached me, Dad barely glanced my way. "Jordan, you can sign as witness. This is mainly for the primary heirs." I took the clipboard but didn't sign. The room quieted as Gabriella clicked to the next slide, a breakdown of the projected payouts. She smiled wide. After fees and taxes, each of us gets a solid check. Dad can finally retire comfortably. Mom can upgrade the house. I can scale the brand properly. And Jordan, well, it'll help with whatever you need. New car, maybe. Laughter scattered through the relatives. Mom smiled indulgently. Dad poured himself more coffee. I stood up slowly. The movement drew eyes. Before anyone signs, I have a question about the villas. Gabriella frowned. What now? You want to sell the cedar and oak ones first, but the cedar property has zoning restrictions on short-term rentals denied last year, and oak had foundation work flagged in the last inspection. Selling as is might not fetch what you think. Dad waved it off. Details we can handle later. The market's hot. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. Actually, I know these properties better than anyone here. Gabriella laughed. You please. You're a teacher, Jordan. You don't even own your own home. I ignored her and looked straight at Dad. You want to liquidate everything Grandma built. You want to split it like it's already yours. But there's something you need to see first. Dad's face tightened. What are you talking about? The front door opened. Mr. Brooks walked in, briefcase in hand. He didn't greet anyone, just set the case on the coffee table with a deliberate thud. Dad stared. Who is this? Mr. Brooks opened the briefcase. Robert Brooks, attorney for the Virginia Hayes Irrevocable Trust. I've been asked to attend. Gabriella crossed her arms. Trust? Grandma never mentioned a trust. She did, Mr. Brooks said calmly. In 2020, all 6 villas and 3 vehicles were transferred out of her personal name into an irrevocable trust. They are no longer part of her estate. They are not subject to guardianship or probate. He laid out the documents, deed transfers stamped by the county trust agreement signature pages. Dad's voice rose. This is impossible. Who controls it? Mr. Brooks pointed to the final page. Sole trustee and beneficiary Jordan Ellis. The room went dead silent. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Jordan. Gabriella lunged forward. You stole them. You manipulated a sick old woman. Mr. Brooks stepped between them. Virginia Hayes was fully competent in 2020. We have video of the signing medical attestations and years of impeccable management by Ms. Ellis. The transfer is legal and final. Dad sank into his chair. You own everything for 5 years. I looked at him evenly. While you planned retirements and Gabriella chased pivots, I paid the taxes. I handled the emergencies. I kept tenants housed and the cars running. You saw me as the one who brought appetizers. I was the one protecting what Grandpa and Grandma built. Gabriella's face twisted. This is fraud. We'll fight it. Mr. Brooks opened another folder, the red one. Before you do, you should see this. He slid it to Dad. Bank statements, highlighted withdrawals, forged check images. Dad flipped through, color draining. Gabriella. These signatures. She snatched the folder. I needed the money. It was a loan. Grandma said she couldn't speak that month. I cut in. She was recovering from the stroke, and that handwriting isn't hers. It's yours. The room froze. Uncle Ray looked away. Cousins shifted uncomfortably. Mr. Brooks spoke next. We have a confession of judgment prepared. Gabriella admits the $25,000 taken and agrees to repay $500 monthly. If she complies, we keep this civil. If not, we proceed with authorities. Gabriella's eyes filled with panic. You can't do this. We're family. Jordan, please. Family. I repeated the word like it tasted sour. Family doesn't steal from a sick grandmother. Family doesn't plan to evict long-term tenants so they can flip houses for profit. Family doesn't treat one daughter like an afterthought while spoiling the other. I turned to Dad. You said it yourself today. Now you go your way and I'll go mine. You were ready to give Gabriella everything, the villas, the cars, the legacy, and leave me with nothing. So that's what we'll do. You go your way, I'll go mine. But my way includes protecting what Grandma entrusted to me. Mom started crying quietly. Jordan, don't do this. We can work it out. Bring Gabriella in as a manager or— No, I said. No managers, no consultants, no family discounts. The trust stays as is. The villas remain rentals for the people living there. The cars stay preserved. And none of you will have access. I looked around the room at the shocked faces, the averted eyes, the sudden stillness. From this moment, we're done. Don't call me. Don't visit Grandma, she doesn't want to see you. Health updates will come through Mr. Brooks only. If you need to reach her for legitimate reasons, go through him. Otherwise, stay away. Gabriella sobbed openly now. You're destroying us. All because you're jealous. I'm not jealous, I said quietly. I'm finished being invisible. You wanted the harvest without the work. You wanted the shine without the dirt. I lived in the dirt for years so you couldn't ruin what Grandpa and Grandma built. I picked up my copies of the documents and the signed confession. Mr. Brooks will file everything necessary. The guardianship petition is withdrawn. The sales are off. That's all. Dad finally spoke, voice hoarse. Jordan, we didn't know. You didn't ask? I replied. You assumed, and assumptions have consequences. I walked to the door. No one moved to stop me this time. Outside, the afternoon sun was still bright. The Corolla sat where I'd left it, old, reliable mine. I got in, started the engine, and drove away from the house I'd grown up in. For the first time in years, the rattling sound didn't feel like failure. It felt like freedom. Grandma's work was safe. And so was I. The weeks after that meeting blurred into a new kind of silence. Grandma held on for 3 more weeks. She passed in her sleep one morning, window open to the summer breeze, birds singing outside. I was there holding her hand. No drama, no rushed goodbyes, just peace. She knew the truth was out. She knew her work stood firm. The funeral was small, formal. My family sat on one side of the aisle. I sat alone on the other. They wore black and nodded to acquaintances. I wore a simple gray dress and focused on the eulogy about Grandpa's work ethic. Tatum found me after eyes wide. That took guts, what you did in there. It wasn't about guts, I said. It was about doing right by her. She hesitated. Can I learn from you? The real stuff, managing properties, not the flash. I saw the spark in her, the same one Grandma saw in me years ago. Come by the office Monday, wear comfortable shoes. We're inspecting a garage. 2 years later, the fallout had settled into something permanent. Gabriella's world unraveled fast. Without the inheritance buffer, her creditors closed in. She sold the leased SUV to cover legal fees and back rent. The lifestyle brand folded for good, no more pop-up shops or sponsored posts. She moved into a studio apartment on the edge of town and took a job as a receptionist at a local car dealership. Every month, $500 wired to the trust. I donated it straight to a charity helping elderly victims of financial exploitation. She didn't fight it. No more selfies with captions about resilience. Just steady compliance. Dad took it hardest at first. The dream of early retirement evaporated. He went back to consulting part-time spreadsheets and reports for firms downtown, the kind of work he swore off years ago. No more golf weekends or weekend trips. He and Mom downsized the house, sold the Range Rover, traded it for a sensible sedan. Mom lost her spot in the country club circles, whispers about the family drama made social invites dry up. She filled her days with volunteer work at the library, but the sparkle was gone. They tried once, 6 months after the funeral. A text from Mom. We miss you. Family dinner. I didn't reply. Mr. Brooks sent the polite refusal. No contact since. It wasn't anger holding me back. It was clarity. They chose entitlement over effort. I chose the opposite. My life, meanwhile, expanded in ways I never planned. The trust grew. Rent stayed steady, expenses controlled. I bought a seventh villa last spring, a fixer-upper on the west side, undervalued after a market dip. Tatum and I gutted it together, new wiring, fresh paint, screened tenants who fit the mold-stable family's long-term leases. She learned fast, took over the bookkeeping. Now she's trustee in training, proving you don't need a spotlight to build something solid. I traded the Corolla for a used Ford Explorer, practical for hauling supplies, not flashy. My apartment's the same, but I added a small office for trust paperwork. Weekends mean site visits, not parties. I drive the classics now and then take them for spins on back roads, feel Grandpa's pride in the hum of the engine. Looking back, the real victory wasn't the money. It was the lesson etched into every decision. Hard work and responsibility beat entitlement every time. They wanted the crown without the crown's weight. I carried the weight and found my strength. Protecting Grandma's work wasn't about revenge. It was about honoring the roofs over heads, the stories in the cars, the sweat in the foundations. Entitlement destroys. Stewardship endures. We haven't spoken in years. No birthdays, no holidays. That's the cut clean final. I don't regret it. The silence is my peace. And in Tulsa's steady rhythm, with the trust thriving and Tatum at my side, I know Grandma would smile. That's my story. If you've ever felt overlooked, dismissed, or expected to carry the load while others take the credit, know this: quiet effort matters more than loud promises. Responsibility builds something lasting. Entitlement crumbles under its own weight. Stand firm for what truly has value, even when it costs you the people who never saw yours. Thank you so much for listening to the end. Your time means everything to me. I wish you all good health, endless luck, and the strength to protect what matters most in your own lives. If this story resonated, please hit that like button, subscribe for more real-life lessons wrapped in drama, and drop a comment below. What did you take away? Any suggestions for future stories? Your feedback helps me make them better and more meaningful. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Let's spread the message that true legacy comes from hard work, not handouts. See you in the next one. Take care.